Welcome to the BEASTwriter podcast. I am your host, Ryan Sakamoto, and today we're going to be discussing the breaking news in regards to defensive coordinator, or I should say, former defensive coordinator Robert Saleh, who accepted a job with the New York Jets to be the team's next head coach, replacing Adam Gase. So let's get started. Now, for those who are new to following my podcast, or if you're not accustomed to following my podcast at all, I like to break down every podcast that I do into three parameters. The first one is who are the players or coaches involved. The second parameter is why the move was made or potentially could be made. And the third but not least parameter is the instant gratification versus long-term gains. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about, well, in this case, it's the head coach. Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh goes from the San Francisco 49ers to the New York Jets and becomes the team's next head coach. Excuse me. So it's a 5-year deal, and I'm told, and it's been reported as well, that Mike LaFleur, the passing game coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, will join Robert Saleh in New York and be promoted to offensive coordinator. For those who don't know, Kyle Shanahan is the one that calls the plays while being the head coach, and so by Mike LaFleur getting this opportunity to go elsewhere to call his own playbook and his own plays, it's really going to help his resume if he hopes of becoming a potential head coach later down the road, like his brother who coaches the Green Bay Packers. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about what do the 49ers get out of this situation. Well, they lose Robert Saleh, which is huge. Everybody was calling for Robert Saleh's head not just 2 years ago, and I tweeted something out along the lines like, you guys are crazy, I like Robert Saleh. People were unfollowing me like, oh, you don't know what you're doing, like they need to fire Saleh. I'm like, no, they don't need to fire Saleh. Then what happens? Well, he had a top 5 defense, took him to the Super Bowl, and then proved his worth once again with great coaching and decimated by injuries, and fielded again a top 10 defense. So when you take that all into account, what do you get? It comes down to the coaching, right? The players play, coaches coach. At the end of the day, if these coaches aren't putting their players in the best position to make plays, the scheme is all for naught. And what Robert Saleh has been doing since day one, since coming to San Francisco, is he focused on what he does best, what he knows best, and tailors his game plan accordingly, coming from the Pete Carroll's coaching tree up in Seattle. Now, they always use a cover 3 scheme with a single high safety, like the boundary cornerbacks playing a little bit off and keeping everything in front of them. And as a result, it worked out. The players bought into the scheme, they brought into the program, and they brought into the passion and dedication that Robert Saleh brought to the table. So again, that's what Saleh brings to the table to the New York Jets, and the 49ers in return lose a top tier defensive coordinator, arguably the best defensive coordinator in the game outside of, I would say, maybe Bill Belichick and a few others. But with that being said, it's a huge blow to the 49ers organization. However, it is a blessing in disguise, so to speak, because they do get 2 third-round picks, compensatory picks, I should say, as a result of the New York Jets hiring a minority candidate from that team that he was formerly with, which in this case would be the San Francisco 49ers. And that's kind of a good thing, right? I mean, who doesn't want compensatory third-round picks? I mean, I'd take it. And third-round picks usually turn out to be good picks. So it's not like it's a 7th or 6th round, late round pick, 5th round pick, borderline fringe player of making the 53, 56 man roster, whatever the number is right now. But at the end of the day, the Niners need all the draft capital they can get because, again, they have a lot of free agents coming up for free agency, and they can't re-sign everyone due to the salary cap that's being diminished from, I believe it was 195 to now 175, something along those lines, and now here we are. All right, but taking it a step further and peeling back another layer of the onion to get to the core, the 49ers aren't the only NFC West team to get compensatory picks this year, and that's because, if you guys haven't heard the news, Brad Holmes, the director of college scouting for the St. Louis Rams from the Los Angeles Rams, has accepted a job to become the Detroit Lions GM, replacing Bob Quinn. So as a result, the Rams now get 2 third-round compensatory picks as well, And here we are, the NFC West, going back and forth, right? Gotta love it, right? But getting back to Saleh, where does he go from here, right? Jets have a plethora of needs across the board. I would argue that they have the most needs of any NFL team. You look at it from top to bottom. Excuse me. You can really just pick your poison on what they need. Quarterback. Let me just run down the list. I have it here in my mock as I'm doing it. And wow. Okay, they need quarterback, running back, wide receiver, right tackle, tight end, offensive guard, nose tackle, defensive end, inside linebacker, outside linebacker, cornerback, free safety, and strong safety. So basically every position outside of maybe a center. Or maybe they do need a center. You get the point. They have needs across the board, and it's not the ideal situation for Saleh to walk into because he is going to a team that really is in trouble under Adam Gase and kind of has to dig this team out of the hole. Now he does have GM Joe Douglas there, who I really like as the team's GM. He's very smart and savvy, and I think him combined with Saleh will be a match made in heaven, and I think this team will be trending in the right direction. However, it's not going to be a 1 or 2 year rebuild. You're looking more at a 3-4 year rebuild, which is why I think Saleh was given a 5-year contract, because if you're looking at it on paper, it's not looking promising at all. All right, so let's go ahead and take that into consideration. Also, anytime a new head coach comes into a situation, you always look at what position first. The quarterback. Who's going to be my quarterback calling the plays? Who's going to be my quarterback in the huddle, being the leader in that locker room? Who is that guy that I can really trust week in and week out? And Robert Saleh has a dilemma. So does Joe Douglas. Do they want to keep Sam Darnold and build around him? Or would they rather wipe their hands clean of him and then start fresh with the number 2 overall pick? These are conversations that have to take place between Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh. I'm sure they did, about the number 2 pick and what they want to do with Sam Darnold before accepting the job, because obviously I don't think Saleh would accept a job not knowing who or which direction they might go in based on if he wasn't the head coach, or based on if he was the head coach potentially. So that's where they stand right now, outside of maybe Mekhi Becton, last year's first round pick, and Quinnen Williams the year before. Everybody is tradable. I don't see any cornerstones on that team outside of those 2 players. Maybe CJ Mosley, but outside of those 3, everyone's been let go. I mean, you just look what happened. Anytime Adam Gase comes in and you lose Le'Veon Bell, you lose Robbie Anderson, you trade certain players to certain teams, and for what? It's almost like, what are you doing? And it's very interesting to see that Saleh would accept this job. Not saying that he's not up to the task or up to the challenge, but it's going to be a really tough task for him to kind of get going. It's going to take at least a 2, 3, 4 year rebuild for them to start seeing traction, because like I said, they have a plethora of needs. Now they do have around $75 million in cap space according to Over the Cap. Let me just double check on that. Let's see, pull it up here. Just bear with me for a second. They have a lot, $71 million in salary cap space. So they have some maneuvering, and they can sign some free agents. You can bet your top dollar that they're going to go ahead and go that route. As to what free agents they'll be signing, well, look at Robert Saleh. Look at the 49ers free agents and look who he can bring in and retain. Because, again, if you're coming in as a first-year head coach, you want to prove your worth early on from the get-go. So K'Wan Williams could be a guy. Kerry Hyder could be a guy. Ronald Blair, coming off a torn ACL, who didn't even play this year, could be a guy. There's a lot. Solomon Thomas could be a guy, could be a bargain price rate. So I fully expect some of these free agents that the 49ers aren't going to be able to retain to go simply to the New York Jets under Robert Saleh, because everybody loves Robert Saleh. He is a player's coach, and the players absolutely love him, and I can see a strong following there. So look for that to happen. All right, little insight there. But who's the 49ers' next defensive coordinator? That leaves a gaping hole. No one answered that, right? So a lot of talk has been DeMeco Ryans' in-house hire, and basically the Niners were sitting ducks because they had no idea. They couldn't really do anything, I should say, because they weren't sure if Saleh was returning or if he would get hired, and what everything was in limbo, so to speak. He finally got hired. Well, they're kind of stuck. Once he finally got hired, other coaches were getting hired too. You have Gus Bradley getting hired by the Las Vegas Raiders. I want to say Oakland Raiders, but obviously it's Las Vegas Raiders. By the Las Vegas Raiders to be their defensive coordinator. And then you have guys like Dan Quinn, right? Who I stated in an earlier podcast that was my front runner. Well, he's now off to the Dallas Cowboys to join former 49ers head coach former 49ers offensive coordinator Mike McCarthy, now the Dallas Cowboys head coach. So when you look at that, it's almost like, well, okay, where do the Niners go from here? Well, I got you covered. In that podcast that I just stated earlier on Dan Quinn, I also mentioned my dark horse candidate who I would like to see in San Francisco if it's not DeMeco Ryans, and that's Chris Richard. Chris Richard was given 5 to 6 offers last year to be the positional coach of 5 to 6 NFL teams. He actually turned down those offers because he believes he knows his worth, and I find that to be true, that he should be a defensive coordinator and nothing less, and that's where he stands. Chris Richard would be a nice option. He is a rah-rah guy. He can really rally the troops. He is well respected in NFL circles. He would be a good choice and logical option if the 49ers decide not to keep DeMeco Ryans and promote him in-house as the team's next DC. All right. So, with all that being said, there's a lot to discuss. I know 49er fans are kind of like down. But then again, it's kind of like yay because we get 2 third-round picks and back-to-back years. All right. Well, that'll be it for today. I just want to say I know Saleh personally, and all I have to say to you is congratulations, well deserved. Spread your wings and take flight. Wow, I'm just so happy for Robert Saleh. Such a great guy, great person, and if you ever met Robert Saleh or know him personally on a personal level, you would know that it's well deserved. It's been coming for a long time, and he works his tail off every single night in that office. So, congratulations, Robert Saleh, and that'll be it. All right. If you liked what I had to say, please hit the subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner of the screen as I keep all things Beast. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good night. BEASTwriter out.